Animal facts are dangerous because they start normal. You open one article thinking, okay, nature is beautiful, ecosystems are balanced, everything has a purpose. And then 5 minutes later you are reading about cube poop, fish living in the worst possible studio apartment, and a jellyfish that basically has an undo button. So today I found 8 animal facts that sound fake, but are apparently real enough that scientists had to sit down, write papers, and make all of us deal with them. This is a good one to put on during lunch, during a late night scroll reset, or any time you need a gentle reminder that nature is not a peaceful documentary. It is a patch notes page with no quality control. Quick heads up. I pulled this together from scientific papers, museums, zoos, and reputable nature sources. If I get a detail wrong, or if you know a better version of one of these, drop it in the comments. I would rather be corrected by a zoology person than confidently wrong in public. Growth mindset, and these are in no particular order, just the animal facts that made me stare at the wall for a second. First up, koalas have fingerprints, not paw prints, not cute little smudges. Actual friction-ridged fingerprints that can look weirdly similar to human ones under magnification, which is rude, honestly. Koalas already have the whole sleepy plush toy thing going on. They did not also need to unlock forensic confusion. The common idea is that fingerprints are basically a human thing, or at least a primate thing. Like, humans have them, apes have them, monkeys have them, and that makes sense because we are all grabbing branches, tools, phones, and emotional support beverages, but koalas are marsupials. They are much more closely associated with eucalyptus, naps, and looking like they just woke up from the world's longest group project than with primates. And yet their digits have these detailed ridge patterns that are strikingly similar to ours. The reason is probably convergent evolution, which is nature's way of saying, I made the same solution twice because apparently nobody was documenting the first build. Koalas spend their lives gripping eucalyptus branches, and their front paws are specialized for that. They even have 2 opposable digits on each front paw, which gives them a strong hold while they climb around and eat leaves that most animals look at and go, no thanks, I choose life. Those ridges may help with grip and touch, the same broad job fingerprints do for us. So the funny part is not that koalas are secretly related to us. They are not. The funny part is that a tree-dwelling marsupial independently arrived at the same tiny hand-deter technology. Some pop science write-ups love the crime scene angle here because the prints can look human-like enough that people joke about forensic confusion. To be clear, I am not saying there is a known unsolved bank robbery where the suspect was later found asleep in a eucalyptus tree. But theoretically, a koala can leave a print that looks suspiciously human while having the energy level of a weighted blanket. Imagine being a detective looking at the evidence board and someone has to say, we cannot rule out the little gray guy with the salad. That is not a criminal mastermind. That is a plush toy with better hand texture than most people. So koalas make the list because they are a perfect opening fact. Cute animal, clean myth bust, no nightmare fuel yet. Just a sleepy eucalyptus suspect quietly proving that evolution sometimes copies homework from itself. Next, wombats poop cubes, and I need you to understand, this is not just internet nonsense. This is one of those facts that sounds like a joke someone made up at 2 a.m., but then actual scientists got involved and the joke became fluid dynamics. Wombats are chunky little Australian marsupials, and they are famous for producing cube-shaped droppings. Not perfectly polished Minecraft blocks, but close enough that the human brain sees them and immediately goes, excuse me, why is this animal exporting office supplies? The first myth to clear up is the obvious one. No, wombats do not have a square exit. I hate that I had to say that, but we were all thinking it. The cube shape is formed inside the intestine. Researchers studying wombat intestines found that the tissue does not stretch evenly all the way around. Some regions are stiffer, some are softer, and as the material dries and moves through the gut, those differences help shape corners. So this is not magic. It is not a cursed geometry power. It is basically soft tissue engineering happening inside an animal that looks like it should be named Gary. And the reason this might matter is communication. Wombats use droppings for scent marking. They leave them around their territory, often on raised surfaces like rocks, logs, or little natural display stands. Because animals are apparently always doing branding, round droppings can roll away. Cubes stay put, which means wombats may have evolved the most stable possible business card. Imagine being another wombat walking through the night and finding a neat little stack of biological dice on a rock. That is not random litter. That is a message. It says, I was here, this is my area, please respect my LinkedIn profile. And a wombat can produce a lot of these in a night, so the whole thing becomes even funnier. Not just one cube, multiple cubes. A small inventory, nature really looked at animal communication and said, scent marking is good, but what if we added product design? The best part is how deeply serious the science gets. There are models of the intestinal mechanics, there are measurements, there are diagrams. At some point, a group of adults had to professionally investigate how a wombat makes cubes, and honestly, that is what higher education is for. So if koalas are the forensic suspect, wombats are the logistics department, they took one of the least glamorous biological functions and somehow made it stackable, cool, normal, very efficient. Next, male seahorses get pregnant. And not in the vague inspirational dad is helping out way. I mean, the male seahorse has a brood pouch, the female transfers eggs into it, and the embryos develop there until the male gives birth. So yes, seahorse dads are not babysitting. They are running a tiny underwater maternity ward while looking like a chess piece with anxiety. The myth here is that male pregnancy is just a cute nickname. Like maybe the male carries the eggs around for a bit, the way some animals guard a nest, and we all clap because dad remembered the children exist. But seahorses are more serious than that. In seahorses and their relatives, the male pouch does real biological work. It protects the embryos, helps regulate salt and water balance, supports gas exchange, and helps handle waste. Basically, the pouch is not a tote bag. It is an operating system. The female deposits the eggs into the male's pouch, and then the male carries them for days or weeks, depending on the species. When the babies are ready, he contracts and releases tiny, fully formed seahorses into the water, which is already a lot. But some species can release hundreds of young in a single birth event. Hundreds. Imagine having one dramatic labor scene and the camera zooms out, and it is suddenly a tiny underwater confetti cannon of children. And because nature has no chill, during breeding season, some males can be ready to mate again soon after giving birth. That is not a dad bod. That is a production schedule. What makes this one good is that it flips the default expectations so cleanly. In a lot of animals, when we hear pregnancy, we assume the female is doing the internal carrying. Seahorses look at that setup and go, actually, let's make the tiny horse-shaped guy do the pouch paperwork. And the science is not just cute. Researchers study seahorse pregnancy because it is a rare version of reproductive biology, with different evolutionary pressures from what we usually see. The male invests heavily after receiving the eggs, and that changes the whole relationship. So if koalas are suspiciously human, and wombats are building cube-based communication infrastructure, seahorses are the family channel where dad is suddenly the entire hospital. Honestly, respect. Still weird. But respect next. Octopuses punch fish. This one sounds like an internet caption, but researchers have actually documented octopuses striking fish during mixed species hunts, not metaphorically, not emotionally. A quick arm movement. Fish gets bonked. Reef workplace culture takes a hit. Here's the setup. Some octopuses hunt alongside fish. The fish can help locate prey hiding around the reef, and the octopus can reach into cracks and holes the fish cannot. So on paper, this is cooperation. Everybody brings a different skill tree. Very wholesome. Very team-building retreat. Then the octopus punches someone. In documented hunting groups, octopuses have been seen throwing quick strikes at fish partners. Scientists are still working through exactly why it happens in every case, but the broad idea is that the punch may help control the group. Maybe a fish is being annoying. Maybe it is exploiting the octopus's work. Maybe the octopus is redirecting the hunt. Maybe the octopus woke up and shows management, and that is the part I love. Because octopuses already have this reputation for being smart, alien, slippery escape artists. They open jars, solve puzzles, squeeze through gaps, and generally behave like they know something we do not. But this fact adds a very human layer. Office politics, the octopus is not just hunting. It is looking at the group project and realizing one fish has not contributed to the slides. So now the reef has consequences. The funny thing is that the punch looks petty, but the behavior sits inside a genuinely interesting scientific question. How do different species coordinate? How do animals negotiate when they have different abilities and different incentives? What happens when cooperation turns into freeloading? Apparently, sometimes what happens is a technical performance review. And to be fair, it is not like the fish are innocent little angels in a children's book. In mixed hunting groups, partners can benefit unequally. Some fish may take advantage of the octopus flushing prey out of hiding, so the octopus may be using force light to keep the arrangement useful. I am not saying this is healthy communication. I am saying if your coworker stole credit for the third meeting in a row, and you had 8 arms, we would all need to be honest about the risk level. So octopuses make the list because the fact is both funny and weirdly advanced. It is not random violence. It is animal intelligence, cooperation, conflict, and maybe a tiny bit of underwater HR violation. Nature built one of the smartest invertebrates on Earth and then gave it the emotional toolkit of a tired project manager. Cool. Great. I hope the fish unionizes next. Wood frogs can freeze and come back, and I do not mean they get a little chilly and need a tiny scarf. I mean, wood frogs can survive winter by letting parts of their bodies freeze. This is one of those facts where the simple version sounds impossible, so the careful version matters. The frog is not becoming a solid ice cube all the way through like something you forgot in the back of the freezer. Ice forms in spaces outside the cells, while the frog's body uses chemistry to protect the cells from lethal damage. Still insane. Just scientifically insane. Wood frogs live in cold places, including parts of Alaska and areas far enough north that most amphibians would simply look at the weather and uninstall themselves. When winter comes, the frog's body starts preparing. Its liver produces a lot of glucose, which acts like a cryoprotectant. That means it helps protect tissues during freezing, kind of like biological antifreeze, except the animal is not a car and should not have to know this. As the frog freezes, normal functions can slow down or stop. Breathing can stop. The heartbeat can stop. From the outside, it can look very much like the frog is done with the season, the franchise, and possibly life. Then spring comes, the frog thaws, and frog.exe resumes. I love how disrespectful that is to our basic understanding of being alive. Most animals get one heartbeat stopping moment, and that is the end of the episode. Wood frogs treat it like airplane mode. The myth bust here is simple. Frozen usually means dead, and for a lot of animals, yes, that is a very fair assumption. Ice crystals can damage cells, dehydration can wreck tissues, and cold can shut down the systems that keep the body running. But wood frogs have evolved a controlled version. They do not avoid winter by migrating across a continent or building a luxury bunker. They just hit pause in the leaf litter and trust the biochemistry. That is not laziness. That is elite seasonal strategy, and visually, it is perfect. A little frog-shaped pause screen sitting under snow, waiting for the world to become less personally offensive. So wood frogs belong here because the fact sounds like a fake survival ability from a video game. Freeze resistance, heartbeat suspension, spring reboot. The rest of us need 3 alarms and coffee to wake up. This frog needs thawing next. The immortal jellyfish has a biological undo button. The animal is called Turritopsis dohrnii, and people love calling it the immortal jellyfish because that is a much better brand name than tiny transparent ocean speck with paperwork. But the honest version is more interesting. This jellyfish is not invincible. It can still be eaten. It can still get damaged. It can still have a bad day in the ocean, which is most days in the ocean. What makes it famous is that under stress, the adult jellyfish can reverse part of its life cycle and go back toward an earlier polyp stage. Basically, instead of aging like a normal animal and accepting the consequences, it can sometimes say, actually, I would like to be a baby colony again. Please undo. That process involves cells changing roles, which is called transnuciation. Specialized cells can shift into different cell types, helping the animal rebuild itself into an earlier form. That is not immortality like a vampire in a leather jacket. It is more like finding a biological reset menu hidden in the settings, and the funniest part is the scale. This legendary death-cheating creature is tiny. Adults are only a few millimeters across. The so-called immortal being is not some ancient sea dragon. It is a little translucent dot that can still get eaten by something with the emotional depth of a spoon, so the myth bust matters. If someone says this jellyfish cannot die, that is too strong. The real claim is narrower, and honestly cooler. In certain conditions, it can reverse development in a way most animals absolutely cannot. Most of us respond to stress by ordering takeout and ignoring emails. This jellyfish responds by reverting to an earlier life stage. That is not healthy coping, but it is a powerful feature, so the immortal jellyfish belongs here because the fact has the perfect shape. The headline sounds fake, the caveat makes it real, and the real version is still deeply unfair. Nature gave a tiny jellyfish an undo button and gave humans lower back pain. Balanced ecosystem. Sure, next. Sea cucumbers have the worst roommate situation in the ocean. We are going to keep this educational and emotionally distant, because this one gets weird fast. Sea cucumbers are soft-bodied animals that live on the seafloor. They look like someone tried to design a vegetable and then gave up halfway through. But biologically, they are doing a lot. One of the most important things is that many sea cucumbers breathe by pulling water through the rear end into structures called respiratory trees. Yes, the breathing door is there. I am sorry, I did not design the ocean. And then, because nature saw that setup and apparently thought, this apartment has potential, there are pearlfish that can live inside sea cucumbers. Some species enter through that same opening and use the sea cucumber as shelter. Imagine being an animal whose ventilation system is also a possible front door. That is not a body plan. That is a zoning issue. Now, not every pearlfish relationship is equally harmful. Some are more like commensal roommates, where the fish gets shelter and the host may not lose much, but some pearlfish can be parasitic, and certain species have been reported feeding on internal tissues. So the range is basically weird tenant, worse tenant, and why is my furniture missing? sea cucumbers do have defenses, because thankfully the animal is not just a helpless ocean cucumber accepting whatever Craigslist sends over. Some species can eject sticky defensive tubes, called Cuvierian tubules, when threatened. Others can lose and regenerate internal tissues, which means sea cucumbers live in a world where the defense options include sticky emergency noodles and rebuilding parts of yourself after the worst roommate meeting ever. The myth here is that this sounds like a gross internet exaggeration, but the real biology is documented: cloacal respiration, pearlfish sheltering behavior, parasitism in some cases, and regeneration. It is not just gross for the sake of gross. It is a whole ecological relationship that happens to be emotionally unacceptable. So this one belongs late in the video because you need to trust me before I say an animal has a breathing door and another animal may use it as an entrance. If we opened with this, I would understand if you clicked away and changed your name. But as a fact, it is incredible. Horrible, but incredible, nature really said. What if an apartment, a lung, and a security problem were the same hallway? No thank you. Finally, flatworms have reproductive duels, and again we are keeping this clean, because the real biology already did too much. Some marine flatworms are simultaneous hermaphrodites, meaning each individual has both male and female reproductive organs. That already sounds like nature trying to simplify the dating pool, but then some species turn mating into a duel. The behavior is often called penis fencing in scientific and nature education contexts, and the basic idea is that two flatworms compete to inseminate the other. The reason is evolutionary math. Producing eggs can be more energetically expensive than providing sperm, so each animal may benefit more by taking the male role and making the other one handle the heavier reproductive bill. So what should have been a neat role-sharing system becomes a tiny underwater argument over who has to pay the egg invoice. I hate how much sense that makes. The visual version should absolutely be symbolic. Two ribbon-looking flatworms in fencing masks with tiny foam swords. That is all we need. Nobody needs the director's cut, but scientifically, this is a great final fact because it shows that even when an animal has both reproductive roles available, evolution does not automatically become peaceful and cooperative. Sometimes it becomes a two-player minigame where the prize is avoiding the expensive job, and that is what makes it funny. It is not random weirdness, it is conflict over energy cost, it is biology doing accounting, and somehow the spreadsheet turned into a duel. The myth bust is that hermaphrodites always neatly trade roles. Some do have more reciprocal systems, but in these flatworms the incentives can create competition. Which means nature looked at a system where everybody technically has the same equipment and still found a way to create workplace tension. Amazing. Exhausting. Very on brand. So flatworms are the finale because they are the cleanest example of this video's whole promise. It sounds made up. It sounds like a joke. It sounds like the kind of thing a middle schooler would invent and then get sent to the hallway, but it is real enough to be studied, and that is the theme of animal facts. The more you learn, the more you realize nature is not a wise old teacher. Nature is a sleep-deprived game developer adding mechanics at 3 a.m. and refusing to explain the patch notes. And those are 8 animal facts that sound fake, but are, unfortunately for our peace of mind, real. We had koala fingerprints, cube-pooping wombats, pregnant seahorse dads, fish-punching octopuses, rebooting frogs, undo button jellyfish, sea cucumber roommate horror, and flatworm fencing drama. That is not a balanced ecosystem. That is a group chat with no moderators. Stay curious, stay mildly concerned, and if you want a part 2, let me know in the comments. I still have dolphins with name tags, crows with grudges, herring doing suspicious audio work, axolotls regenerating like it is nothing, and tardigrades refusing to respect normal survival rules, so score so you do not miss the next one.